Hey everybody, I'm Jessica. You might know me from Gameward Bound, my blog, or I'm Albia on Board Game Geek, or I am just that solo board game person. That's me. And I am excited to talk about another new topic today relevant to solo games. I put together a list of my top 7 campaign board games that I like to play solo. And this is an interesting topic because a lot of the time campaign games are very cooperative. It's all about working together and solving different problems, going through different chapters or scenarios. So having this in the solo realm can be a little, not difficult, but different, I would say. And there are some games where it's playing solo is possible with a single character. Other times it's kind of creating a group and making sure that they're all working together, and managing all of that can be, again, a different experience than if it's with a group. So over the years, I was not a big fan of campaign games. I really liked to just learn a new game, play it a few times, put it away, and move on to another game. That was sort of what I was, how my play style was for a long time. But over the course of time, I picked up a bunch of new games, a lot of campaign games, and I wanted to share some of my favorites and just talk about what makes them really neat, really clever, and just fun. So let's dive in, and I can talk more about each one, because I can talk. So at number 7 on my list is this one who's been hanging out off to the side. It is Role Player Adventures by Thunderworks Games. And this is one of my newer ones. It's a lot of fun. But why was it fun? For me, it was that whole storyline and actually being able to see what a decision in an early chapter or adventure had an effect on later on. So maybe I encountered a character and I was either, it was a positive interaction or negative. I would pick up a card that sort of reminded me of that. And then later on, that would affect how the story went. Maybe I would see them again, or it would impact something in the overall story, which was really cool. And there were different factions to sort of, build up relationships with or ruin relationships with. I really loved the story in this. This was very, I think that's very important with campaign games, especially in solo. For me, at least, I really like the ones where the story comes through and really has a very big impact on me. I remember the moments, and I have some moments. I'm not going to spoil anything here, but I do remember a lot of things that happened still, even after the campaign was over with. There's also dice manipulation taken over from role player. That mechanic didn't 100% work for me. I liked it, didn't love it, but the story really drew me in. That was what I really enjoyed, and I would definitely play through again. And I played with just a single solo character, so I did feel like it was me in the game, sort of experiencing that world. So story, excellent in Role Player Adventures, and the box, though, a little large. To try to figure out where to put this. Okay, I'm back. The rest can kind of go off to the side. Number 6 is going to be Valeria Card Kingdoms, the Darksworn expansion. And what is this? So Valeria Card Kingdoms is it's really interesting where you're kind of rolling dice. If you're familiar with Space Base, this kind of has a similar mechanic of rolling dice, and that can have effects on what's going on. I was okay with the base game solo mode, but the Darksworn expansion actually adds in a campaign plus something else to kind of be experienced. Again, I don't want to spoil anything. It's kind of a one-shot campaign where it's very much straightforward. You're not really going to have a branching storyline or anything, but it really improved the solo mode for me. So the reason I enjoy this campaign so much was because after you're done with the campaign, you can use those rules again and even go through the campaign again, and it makes the enemies and just how the entire mechanics work a lot more interesting, more compelling decisions. In the base game, I felt like I had to do one thing, and there was sort of a definite need to kind of go through a single process. With this, I actually had to work through a lot more problems and be able to kind of figure out how to best utilize everything. And it changed the game a lot, but in a great way for solo. Again, I played with just a single character here. If I had more table space, it probably would have worked with more characters to kind of have more interactions, but that was how it worked, and I really enjoyed the changes. Again, the base game is great for solo. Maybe good would be a better interpretation, but Darksworn adds a lot and really changed the game for the better. So that is Valeria Card Kingdoms. If I had a good place to stack games, you know? We're going to see in a second, though, not all campaign games have to have huge boxes. However, the next one does. Number 5 is... where it is. Mechs versus Minions. I'll try to hold this up so we can semi-see it. So this is another huge box. And Mechs versus Minions, this was one of the first ones that I actually played as a campaign game. I played with all 4 characters, which makes it very chaotic, but very fun. I'm going to put it down slightly. It's Mechs versus Minions, I promise. The box is huge, though, if you can see. I'm going to put it off to the side. There, good enough. Okay. But in this one, you have these mechs. And they are going around, and you kind of have to actually program. It's like a programming game where you have a setup, and you're going to say, you know, like move left or move forward or do this. And you're programming each mech. There's a timer element. You can use it. I kind of ignored it because I'm not great under pressure. But then there's all types of things that can happen. The scenarios are kind of, they're hidden, and they introduce different elements each time. So you're slowly building up and also learning. I've mentioned this a couple times. I like how some games, not just campaign games, but board games in general, how they will kind of introduce all of the concepts by having you go through different scenarios. So rather than having a 30-page rule book to start with and say, all right, I got to learn all this just to get started, it's more like, okay, here's, you know, like 4 pages of just general rules, play this, and then it kind of takes you through and gives you a chance to learn by playing. And I love doing that. That's one of a learning style, I should say, that works for me. Not going to work for everybody, but that's sort of why I gravitate towards it. The campaign's a little short, maybe, but very, very fun. This probably, I have not played through it again, mostly due to box size. But Mechs versus Minions, really interesting, especially with the programming element. You don't see a lot of board games that have programming sort of mixed in there. So let's see. That was number 6, right? No, that was number 5. I know what I'm talking about. Number 4 is one that I mention a lot, and that's Legends of Andor. And I know I mention it a lot, mostly because it is so different. It's one of those games that introduces you to concepts. The first scenario that you're put into is kind of like a tutorial, but it can play out a little differently. And Legends of Andor, the other reason I like this one so much, is that it is almost like a strategic chess match in a way, and I don't play chess, so pardon the analogy from someone who doesn't know what they're talking about. But there are enemies on the board, but you are advancing through these different legends, and if you kill the monsters too quickly, you're going to reach the end and not be successful. This is something that, understandably, some people like, some people don't like, but it's more about actually kind of moving throughout the board and figuring out ways to get around enemies and meet goals versus just fighting. I play this with all 4 characters, which is a lot of fun. I don't feel like I'm, overburdened by all these different decisions. They all work together. I get to experience a couple of different unique abilities that each one has. And just being able to kind of play the group versus an individual is also fun. Sometimes this can feel overwhelming when there's a game that is just There's a lot going on with a lot of characters. Here, I think it's done really well because it's kind of uniform across characters. So you're not, learning all these different things. Each character is going to have a unique ability, but that doesn't change too much of it. And I have played through the Legends. They're not going to really change. There's a couple that have, randomized elements that will change. I would still play through them again. I am thankful that I do not remember every single detail about these games. So I consider this something that I can play through again after a few months or another year and still have fun with it and, not feel like I'm doing the same thing. So that is Legends of Andor. Again, we've seen a lot of big boxes. My number 3 is a surprisingly small box. This is Pocket Landship, which is so much tinier than everything else. I can actually get the whole box on the screen this time. That's a plus. Pocket Landship is really interesting because you can actually customize what's going on in each mission and kind of have difficulty levels based on what's going to come out. So there's going to be a grid, and you kind of have your cards. You're rolling dice, deciding where to use those dice for different actions. And it seems like a very simple system, but there's a lot of decision points that I found. Like, do I want to focus on defense? Or should I go attack this? Or, I can't actually attack that row. I'm going to have to, or that row or column even sometimes. I can't do anything. What can I do? And working through that. And it's a very quick sort of campaign. Again, smaller boxes, not always, but usually have a shorter playing time. And that's what I like about this campaign again. Very compact. This can travel with me. Most of the other ones are not. I'm not going to be lugging those around. This is easy to take though, and it plays quickly. And again, it's maybe not those really interesting, I shouldn't say interesting, maybe not those deep decisions about, okay, I'm going to do this, and then later on the campaign, this is going to happen. It is a little bit more like individual scenarios versus a continuing storyline, although I still get that from what's included in the rulebook, and how to, sort of build up and see what's happening there. But Pocket Landship is a little bit of a different type of campaign game. But again, I like my different mix of everything. And this one is, again, great just to have as something different. So that one, awesome to play. Now we're getting to the end here. My number 2 is Legacy of Dragonholt, which again, this is a little more of an RPG, maybe not quite a campaign style game as we would define it in some ways, but I'm gonna say this meets my my criteria. And Legacy of Dragonholt is a very narrative-based game. Again, this one though, sort of going back to role player adventures, the story is the thing here that really draws me in. I'm a character going through this world. I get to explore it sort of on my own terms. There's a time feature, so I can go around and say, I'm going to explore this, or I'm going to interact with this character before I go do this. And the other neat thing about this is that the different booklets or scenarios, you kind of have to discover them in the game. So there's a chance that you might get to the very end and say, wait a second, I didn't actually even look at that one book. Let me go back and find it. And there's a lot of different things going on in the world that you can sort of experience. This one is way up there because I had again, no spoilers, I had a very memorable moment happen in this. I still remember it to this day. And it brought out a lot of emotions. It wasn't just a story of just, oh, okay, let me read. Yeah, that's great. It was like, oh no, what have I done? And again, no spoilers. I'm not saying what happened. But I did feel like it was me that was responsible for something in the story, based on my own decisions. So, and going through this again, what else was I going to say there? I got lost in Dragonholt, apparently. But again, what you do can have impacts on what's going on, and you're collecting some different items, which again can have impacts on what happens later on in the story. And it's just a really neat system. I actually, the campaign sheet for this is sort of you're filling in numbers or letters to kind of indicate what has happened to you. And I used colored pencils, so I have a beautiful sheet to remind me of what happened during my adventure there. But this one is something that, again, as a lot of campaign games, it's not something I'm going to pick up a lot. It's not something I'm playing over and over again. But every year, maybe 2 years, this is something I would definitely come back to and have fun with, trying to find different paths, or potentially, since it's me, just following the same path because I don't remember what I did last time. Which is a positive, I would say. Let's just make sure I don't crush Pocket Landship. And then, time for number one. My number one campaign game to play solo is Aftermath. And Aftermath is, let me see, where are we? It was by Plaid Hat Games, so you might be more familiar with Stuffed Fables, where you sort of have that storybook with the maps and everything, and that's the scenarios. We don't have like a board and all these other components. It's played in a book. Aftermath also does that. I have not played Stuffed Fables, so I can't compare the two, mostly because Stuffed Fables, I can't handle some of the minis. I just can't do it. Aftermath is a different one where it's sort of a post-apocalyptic world where humans just disappeared. There's no explanation for it. They're just gone. There's a few snippets and little pieces of narrative mixed throughout. But you don't know what happened, but the smaller animals and pets, sort of, they learned how to talk, and they are a lot more sentient now, and those are the ones that are going throughout the world. So in Aftermath, playing as 4 characters, what is it? It's a guinea pig, a hamster, a rat, and a mouse, I want to say. It's been a little while, but I've again, I loved this one. I played through this nonstop for about a month. Went through all different types of scenarios, experienced a whole lot that the world had to offer, lots of surprises, lots of twists and turns, and even like really fun scenarios. I think there was one where I was actually like doing a race through almost a shopping center. And that was just fun. It was very different but fun, but also it still felt like it was within the narrative. And at the same time, I was also kind of building up the base for everybody, which was really cool. I could build like new areas and expand on it. And there's actually sort of a visual element that comes into play here with the cards that get built into it. So you start off with like a very just, basic area, and you slowly add to it, and it looks really cool. And the enemies in here are also really interesting. I don't want to spoil anything, and I don't think it's not on here, so I won't say anything. But the enemies are cool, and to go back to me playing through this over the course of a month, I never actually got to every scenario. There were still a few that I never experienced. There's a little bit of backtracking and playing through the same areas a few times, but there's also card play that's going on, and it was so much fun. And again, this one was very memorable, not just for the story, I would say, but also for those mechanics. Story was excellent here, but I also really liked just tracking what was going on and figuring out how to play those cards and do all this other stuff. And it has cool minis and all these other components, and they're little animals. If you know me too, I enjoy, there's calico critters or Sylvanian families. They're these little animal critters that I collect. This matched my style, so I was really drawn to this one. Again, not just for the story, and the theme, but for how it plays. It's a very nicely laid out system that also has, where is it? I thought it was on here. Oh, it is. It's sort of at the bottom. There's a tracker though, so you can actually track things and just pause, and you have a record of where you are and what you have. So much fun, and exploring the world. I could go on and on. There we go. That's my top 7. Campaign games, awesome. Playing solo, there's always a different experience. Hopefully this was a lot of fun, and I hope that you get to experience some type of campaign game solo at some point, because they are fun, and a very different experience than just a regular, non-campaign board game. So that is it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'm sure I will be back again to talk more about solo. Never stop talking about it. Take care. Bye.